Right, Mr. Warner, you ready to eat? Thank you. We have Mr. Warner down here for his evening meal.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Would you like him in the same room over here?
Yeah, that's fine.
If you want to wait right here, we'll go see if they have his tray ready.
Okay, thank you.
Do they have his food tray ready for him down here?
Huh?
His food tray? They haven't brought it yet? Okay, let me TX the dining hall. We'll get that squared away. We'll have to call 38 on the radio.
Oh, okay.
38, 31. 38, be advised, we need evening meal in dining hall, from dining hall to medical. All right. We're bringing this offender down because he has been losing weight, and so there was a rumor that he had been throwing away his meals. So what we do is we're bringing him down here. That way, us as the custody staff can monitor him, and the nurses monitor him, and we can go ahead and after every meal he gets a weigh-in. They check his pulse, they check his vitals to make sure everything's going okay, and that he's going to start gaining his weight back.
Is there any way to tell why this might be happening, or what he might be going through to cause him to not eat?
At this time, because of the medical records, I'm not, at liberty to look through his medical records. He talks with Dr. Abrams, who's our psychologist, at least once a week to find out if there's anything different in the, whatever he's doing in his regular normal day life here. And as of that, that's the only thing we know of at this point.
Okay. Where does this offender usually stay within the prison system here?
He stays in our maximum control unit down at B3. He had what it was is when he was out in general population, he had a few bad incidents to where they felt that it was, one of those things that he had to be monitored at all times, and to keep him safe from himself and others, they had him in the maximum control unit.
And do you know how long this offender has been there?
He's been with our unit approximately 3 months.
So if this is correct, could you put it in your own words? So this offender stays in the longer term?
Yes, this offender stays in our long-term maximum control unit for approximately a year. Could be sooner, depending on how quick he gets his levels. And the level system down there, the way that they work that out, it's all based on your behavior. As long as you're doing what you're supposed to, you're, working with your education, you're working with the different things that we ask you to do for custody-wise, as in your behavior and with group sessions and counseling, then you'll earn your levels. And then once you reach level 5, they transition you back out to normal GP general population.
So you say this offender may stay there a year. Is that typical?
Yes, we've had some that's even stayed longer.
Can you tell me a little bit about what's typical in your unit and how long some of the offenders stay and why?
A lot of the offenders that we get in the maximum control unit is due to their behavior, and sometimes a lot of it has to do with their peers. You know, they break off into security threat groups, your vice lords, your disciples, your Latin kings. You know, so once they break down into those, then, you know, they always want to prove in their units out there in general population who's the bigger man, and they set up their little extortion rings and, you know, who we're going to debt dog, whose meals we're going to take. And once we find out and who the exact people are that are running these extortion rings, then those are the ones that usually get referred by their counselors and by our administration to be placed in a maximum control unit. Then we have other offenders who are just, you know, violent, just constantly disruptive, that are beating other offenders up, and, you know, basically through their violent actions and behavior, they get placed on the control unit.
Okay. And I'm sorry, you used the term dead dog. What's that?
Actually, a debt dog is like if I'd come in and you're brand new here and I ask you, you know, hey, look, this is what we're going to do. I got some commissary, I got some, you know, cookies, candy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 3 bags of cookies, 2 candy bars. When you get your money in, you're going to give me 4 bags of cookies and 5 candy bars. And then what they do is they keep getting this individual further and further in debt until he ends up to the point where, you know, he can't even repay the debt. And so then what usually happens also is some of those offenders that leave and go on to the transition, they pass their debts on to the next offender in line, or their next little, you know, step up on their row of pecking order, I should say.
You guys see stuff, we thought we had heard it all about what they do. Give me some other incidents.
We have individuals here that'll eat their own feces. They'll, you know, smear it on themselves. They'll put it in bread. They'll eat it. We've had individuals that take different things like pencils, pencil lead, paper, sporks, and put it in different orifices in their bodies. Let's see, what else do we have?
Talk about the kid who popped open the.
Oh, and just last weekend we had a kid that busted open his cuff port and threw a handful of feces at one of the officers, and right as the officer was walking up, he caught it out of the corner of his eye and did a matrix move and almost bent completely in half backwards and just missed him. But it hit one of our other officers, Ernie, in the arm. So he wasn't so lucky on that one.
So you always have to be on alert.
Yes, all the time.
They'll take the milk and juice bags and cut the corner open and urinate in it and squirt it out the bottom or the cracks in the door and spray it with urine. And it's just anything they can think of, they will throw it at you or hit you. Or
We've had everybody from the superintendents down to counselors and staff get hit with urine, feces.
Say what? So what makes you wake up in the morning and want to come back here? I don't know.
try to make a difference.
Yeah, it's like myself. I was telling this lady earlier in medical, you know, as a child, you know, growing up as a teen, there was some of the stuff that these guys did that I did myself. And so, you know, I took the job thinking that, hey, look, actually I wanted to be a counselor and, you know, work my way in through it as a counselor. But then as you're going along in DOC, it's like, you know, you see the camaraderie, almost the familyism that you have here with your officers and your sergeants and your lieutenants. So, you know, basically that's what's kept me from doing everything but, you know, or actually staying in custody. And, you know, it's one of those things, if you can touch one of these kids and make a difference, then you've made some difference in the, you know, in society out there. I've run into kids on the streets that I've seen that, you know, that have done excellent. The first thing they do, they act like you're a long lost uncle. They'll come up and show you pictures of their kids. You know, I'm married now, I got a job doing this or doing that. And then, you know, there's times that you sit at home and you watch the news and you're like, oh, there he goes, he just graduated to prison. You know, they did some high-speed chase through Indianapolis or robbed somebody. Back when I worked at boys' school, me and a sergeant went into a donut shop so he could pick up donuts for his daughter the next morning, and we ran into kids that we had earlier in the early 90s, and they was like, hey, how you guys doing? And, you know, we're talking to us, and they let us walk out and leave. As soon as we started to pull out, they robbed the place. So it was like, you know, sometimes you get to their heads and they do the right thing, and then other times they, just graduate and go on in over to prison. In fact, he came from the adults and had one of the kids I had from the time he was 12 till he was 18.
So why juveniles and not adults? I think most people might think that the adult, or working with the juveniles would be easier with the adults, but easier than the adults, but that's not true. is it?
Well,
Well, like he said, when we were younger, we did some of the things that these kids done. I mean, I was in juvenile when I was younger for 2 weeks. So 9 out of 10 times, I mean, you could sit down and talk to the kid and say, look, I've been there, I've done that, now look at me. I'm trying to set an example and do the right thing. You went from, being locked up to being a correctional officer and trying to make a change. So, I mean, they can relate to you, and, they actually feel like, somebody else, that's done that, they can sit down and talk to them about what they've done and relate. So rather than somebody that's been, goody all their life, never been in trouble, it's expected. But they talk to somebody that's been in trouble before, they just feel more comfortable and they open up to you, and you can find out what's really going on.
Why are the juveniles, everybody I've talked to who's worked in either the adult side and the juvenile side, they always say, oh, the juveniles, it's a much more difficult population to deal with. Why do you think that is?
there's the reason being is, as adults, there's penalties for things that they do are a lot more harsh. Like if you batter an officer, you can face up to a 2 to 8 year charge. Whereas here, it's like, depending on how heinous it was, they're going to try to press the charges. Our investigator that we have now, Miss Friend, is, she's on it. If a staff gets battered, she's going to do everything that she can, to make sure that there's some justice for it. But sometimes counties ain't willing to press or pursue the charges, and they just end up getting recommitted here back to this facility, or, transferred to another facility. So the penalties aren't as harsh as the ones that the adults get. Even something for as simple as trafficking, the adults are looking to lose, years, months of time, whereas here it's a 3 to 5 day charge. They'll do 3 to 5 days, and then they go back out to general population. They try to cut them those breaks to make sure that, hey, if we can teach them something and get them out of here, maybe they won't go to the adults. But sometimes it just don't work. I'm almost, and I've said it for years, that we should probably get a little bit more harsh with our penalties like the adults, where when an individual comes in, you give them a certain set date and time, like, hey, look, when you came in on this date, here in 9 months, if you do everything that you're supposed to, you will leave. If you batter another student, add on another 2 weeks, add on another 2 months, and do it that way. And I think that they would take it, the things that they do out here is trafficking, fighting, battering kids. I think they would take it a little more serious than what they do now. Granted, as teens fight all the time. It's just part of growing up. Ever since you were this big, you wrestled with somebody, or you fought with somebody. So it's one of those things that once they get here, they gotta realize that they're in prison and not just out on the streets where they can just walk away from it and it's all said and done.